So I want to welcome you to the Soulful Sessions, where we're going to be nurturing emotions with dental and biological discoveries. And last session, we talked about how emotions can affect our bodies. As researchers like Dr. Candace Pert have suggested, it is believed that emotions can be stored in our bodies, tissues, muscles, and the fascia and every single cell. So this idea is being studied in psychology and somatic therapies, which aim to use the body to regulate the emotions and enhance well-being. So while scientific understanding is still developing, there is an increased recognition of the mind and body connection and how the emotions impact our physical state. So why am I doing this? Well, my mission is to explore that connection between the mouth, the body, and the mind to uncover emotional factors that are underlying dental and health issues and provide individuals with practical strategies for improved health and happiness. So I would like to create a community that radiates vibrant smiles, contributing to a happier and healthier world. It's a big, big mission. That's kind of the idea. But why do I have this image in there? And is it because when we're doing this exploration, is like if we are in a cave, because a lot of this is at a subconscious level. So we can see that we have a toothache, or we can experience a toothache. We can experience some discomfort in the body. But a lot of this is coming from information that is stored in our subconscious. So we're going to have our gear and we're going to start exploring, see what it is that our body is going to communicate to us. What is that message that the body has for us? In last session, we talked about that communication between the body and how, for example, if there is inflammation on your gums, that bacteria can travel through the capillaries, through that bloodstream, and it can go to different parts of your body, and how the teeth are connected to meridians that connect the teeth to an organ, for example, to a system. And then in my mind, to be able to achieve health and longevity, this is kind of the road we need to start following. So yes, oral health is really important. Doing a biodental health analysis, in my opinion, is a shortcut to get to health and longevity, because there is a lot of information stored in our mouth, a lot of information stored in our teeth. And then doing that project on purpose, this project that our parents had for us at a subconscious level, that we are here subconsciously following. And sometimes I don't want to follow that message. I don't want to just do what my parents wanted me to do. I want my own purpose. I want my own project. So we can change that, and we can change what it is in our genetics. Then positive thinking is very important. Rest. Then we have the transgenerational, all this information from our ancestors. Nutrition is really important. And exercise. So let's start looking at all those things that can be affecting our health, our mind, our bodies. And I want you to think and maybe write down which are the toxins that you think can be affecting you the most. What are those toxins that can be affecting your body, maybe your mouth? Just anything that comes to mind, write down what you think that can be affecting you the most. So let's look at this slide, toxins and what to do. Dental amalgam fillings is one of the toxins that affect our mouth. If we look at that image, you can see what they call it, a smoking tooth. This smoking tooth, they rub the amalgam filling, that mercury filling on that tooth. And then that activation of the amalgam filling started emitting all those mercury vapors. So you can see how there is smoke coming out. Those are mercury vapors. Imagine what's happening in your mouth every time you're biting. So if you have mercury fillings, those silver fillings, we're activating this. Kidneys are sensitive to mercury, which can pass, the mercury passes through the blood-brain barrier and affect the mitochondria. And imagine inhaling that mercury. It has been linked that the mercury is associated with Alzheimer's disease. So they do different tests to see how much mercury you have in your body, or not only mercury, because we have other heavy metals that can be affecting our body. So around 25% of mercury, unfortunately, can be found on flu vaccines. So other metals can be affecting our mouth, and crowns, for example, when they do the crowns that are metal crowns, or even the crowns that have metal and then porcelain on top, it's a mix of different metals that can be causing some allergies or some response in our body. We do a test that is called a biocompatibility test. There's people that can be responding to these metals in our body. Some other people are not responding to that. Why is that? Well, we're all different. But the problem is that when you have metals in your mouth, that combination of metals, it creates a galvanism. What is galvanism? Is something that happens, is a phenomenon that occurs when two different metals come into contact in the mouth. For example, with that amalgam filling, and maybe you have a gold crown, or maybe you have a stainless steel crown or another type of metal crown. So when that happens, this interaction of the different metals can create an electrical current in the mouth, leading to sensations like metallic taste or discomfort. And that's what is known as the galvanism. The other thing is fluoride. Fluoride is a neurotoxin. And then fluoride is considered more toxic than arsenic. Did you know that? It's incredible. And we are seeing how we have fluoride in the water. How is that possible? We also have that BPA that is found in a lot of the restorations. So it is important to not only like remove those amalgams with the safe method. Don't just go to the dentist and tell the dentist, oh, can you remove this amalgam? Because while you're removing, imagine if this person just rubbed that amalgam filling and started smoking. If you are removing the amalgam with a high speed, that creates a lot of heat. So it's going to be more mercury vapor coming out of the mouth. And then what? You're inhaling that. So it is important to remove your amalgams safely. Where you're not inhaling that is protecting you, so you're not swallowing it. And then also us as a dentist and then my assistant needs to be protected. We cannot be inhaling that vapor. And then also preparing your body before removing this amalgam fillings is important, because it's heavy metal. We need to make sure that we're taking it out of the system correctly. So we talked about mercury fluoride, those other metals. We talked about BPA, but then now we talk about root canals. And root canals is a topic that the more I learn about and the more I see how it's affecting my patients, yes, you can do a root canal correctly, and very few specialists do it in a correct way. But it's very difficult to remove 100% of all that bacteria that is inside of the mouth, inside of the tooth. Because the tooth is like a sponge. All these tubules, all these little holes can be filled with bacteria. Nobody is guaranteeing me that this tooth is going to be completely clean. And there is a lot of bacteria inside of that. A lot of bacteria when there is an infection on a root canal tooth. So it's not that every single root canal needs to be removed, but if there is an infection, I will 100% want you to have that tooth removed before it's causing more problems in the rest of your body. And then we have some chemicals, for example, that are in our toothpaste. You can go on my blog. There is an article where I talk about things that you want to avoid in a toothpaste because they can cause reactions in your body. Some people are very susceptible and they can just right away have a reaction in their mouth, irritation. But it is important to just make sure that you're using the right toothpaste to avoid problems with your body. And then we're going to go and see something that I've been learning more and more. That is the pathogenic bacteria. And what I've learned is that, yes, we have good and bad bacteria. We have about 700 species of bacteria in our mouth. Not all of them are bad. But what I learned this week on this book that is just fascinating, it's just blowing my mind, is that some of those good bacteria is like peer pressure. The bad bacteria are the bullies. And then if there is a lot of bad bacteria, a lot of pathogens, the good bacteria can become bad. Isn't it incredible? If there is a lot of bad negative bacteria, can become negative, but can start releasing byproducts that are going to cause damage in your mouth and in your body, as we will see. So these are some of the signs that are going to indicate toxicity or an imbalance in the body. When we have canker sores that are repetitive, if we're having, like I have patients that they have canker sores every other month, something is happening. Or halitosis. If we have inflammation on your tonsils, it can be an indication that there is something that your body is not accepting, that there are some toxins in there that are causing a constant or a frequent episode of tonsillitis. Inflammation on your gums, if you're having really good oral hygiene, if you're having your regular cleanings every 4 or 6 months, I do not recommend anyone, even if you have a really good oral hygiene, to go more than 6 months. The more I see under the microscope all these different pathogens and how aggressive they can be, the more I believe that we need to be under control and monitor our bacteria at least every 6 months. And then the bad taste in your mouth, that's also an indication that there is some toxicity happening, or, as we can see in next sessions, hormonal imbalances. Changes in the tongue. And then this is a really good image. So we can see if there is some like a redness or like irritation, or maybe the color in your tongue is different. Every area in your tongue is indicating an organ. So a lot of patients have like a little red area, or maybe they come with a white patch on their tongue right in the center, and that's associated with some digestive system issues. Or the patients that are having the indentations on the tongue on the sides, like you see the teeth on the sides, that is indicating that it could be thyroid issues or And then we'll talk about that in the future sessions about hormones and signs in the tongue and the mouth. If the tip of the tongue is red, something going on with your heart. And then with this, we can be thinking about the physical heart or the emotional heart. So yeah, persistent bad breath, inflammation or bleeding in the gums can be an indication of systemic inflammation or maybe genetics. And then we can see how by doing a test, you can test if you have some genetic predisposition to certain conditions, certain inflammation in your body. So oral thrush is another way of finding that there is fungal infection. And it's just the white patches on your tongue, on the inside of the tongue, sometimes on the cheek side. That metallic taste that we talked about. Then sometimes we have tooth loss, bone loss. We have inflammation that we don't see. We have inflammation that is not visible. And there is a test that I highly recommend everybody to do, and is a thermography. Thermography is going to be detecting temperature in your body. When the temperature is elevated, that's an indication that there is inflammation. So if we look at this picture on the left, the redness, you see the redness on the side of the neck in the front. Well, this patient was having some thyroid issues. A lot of the times we see that the drain, there is an infection in the mouth. We can see a little redness here, and it could cause drainage through the neck and affect the thyroid. So bacteria can spread from the gums by entering through those capillaries, those small blood vessels, but they can also be swallowed. We're swallowing multiple times. So then you will be swallowing all this bacteria. And if you have an imbalanced microbiome in your mouth, an imbalanced amount of bacteria with a lot of pathogens, imagine what is doing that with your digestive system. It's disrupting your digestive system. We have seen candida in the slides of the patients. So if you have candida in your mouth and you're swallowing that, it's going to go to your gut. And vice versa, if you have candida in your gut, it can come to your mouth. Because as we saw in the first few slides, there is a communication through the blood vessels. So then when the oral bacteria enters the bloodstream, it triggers the production of some cytokines and chemokines that are going to be damaging the organs in the body. And as I was saying, some of those good bacteria can just start transforming into the bad bacteria. So here is going to be a sample of some of those bacteria that are in the mouth, some of those pathogens. Did you know that we coexist with trillions of bacteria, fungi, and parasites inside of us? Trillions. We have 10 times more bacteria than we have human cells. So what are we going to do? We have trillions of bacteria. What are we going to do with all this little tiny microscopic invaders? We're coexisting with them. They have found that mainly periodontitis, that inflammation of the gums, when there is some bone loss, when there's deeper pockets, meaning that when we just go and measure the space between the gum and the bone, if it's deeper than 3 millimeters, then we start having some issues, inflammation, redness, irritation, bleeding, and then bone loss. It's a perfect environment for these aggressive bacteria. So we have this Porphyromonas gingivalis, and that's an aggressive one. It's associated with an increase in insulin resistance. Can you believe it? Insulin resistant. is associated with Porphyromonas gingivalis, and it causes inflammation in the system. And it can also impact our gut microbiome. It is also associated with diabetes when we have this type of bacteria, pancreatic cancer, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, if we have this type of bacteria. And you can see Porphyromonas gingivalis is in almost all of them. Then we have also Alzheimer's disease, which is associated with spirochetes. And again, Porphyromonas gingivalis, which, to make it easier, we call it PG. So Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, cystic fibrosis, esophageal cancer, colorectal cancer is also associated with pregnant women that having babies early, preterm babies. But what are we going to do with trillions of bacteria in our mouth? Are we going to ignore those enemies? Or are we going to ignite the energy in the immune system? If we ignite our energy and our immune system, we're going to start changing the environment. Of course, we need to work on that physical body. We need to get rid of all this bacteria, but we need to start working on our energy. So it will be ideal to start avoiding those processed foods, sugars, additives, the unhealthy oils. Opt for organic produce and limit the exposure to pollutants. Support our liver and our gut. So eat some foods that are rich in antioxidants, fiber, fermented foods. Stay hydrated. Brush, floss, floss, and floss. But more important is just to talk to your dentist. And if your dentist is not looking at your slide, you don't know what kind of bacteria you have. You don't know if you have this kind of bacteria that is affecting your mouth and your body. So looking at the slide is the only way. Actually, there is another way that I'm going to share with you in a minute. But definitely your dentist will be able to determine what it is that is happening in your mouth. So oral hygiene, be careful with the chemicals that you're putting in your mouth. Be careful with the toothpaste and the mouthwash that you're using. There's a lot of mouthwash that is not beneficial. It's just killing all the bacteria. We don't want to kill all the bacteria. We want only the bad guys to die, not the good ones. So we need to be careful with the mouthwash that we're using. Then doing some detoxing is important too. Doing detoxing with just the food that you're ingesting is a good way. Having some chelation, going to your doctor, a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor, and doing chelation to get rid of all those heavy metals the right way. Because the heavy metals are not only going in the bloodstream, they're also going into every single organ and even to the brain. So we want to make sure that we're detoxing the body and we're removing all these heavy metals. So a nutrient-rich diet with whole foods, healthy fats, lean proteins. One thing is be careful with who you kiss, because this bacteria is shared. So if you're kissing someone that is having high pathogens in their mouth, that they're having some of this aggressive bacteria, you're going to be sharing those pathogens. And then even your pets, so you can be sharing that with your pets. And as I said, seek personalized guidance. But one of the things that I want to do is just to start giving information so people are informed and they can be sharing it with the providers. Because you can go, and that's my personal experience. I've been seeing 3, 4, 5 different physicians at the same time. They are all giving me different information. I need to be my own advocate. And that's why I want people to learn to become their own advocates and decide what is best and listen to the body. Okay, this is not okay for my body. And then find options, but then also help your providers, help your health providers. Maybe ask them, okay, what about this? What about that? I learned this. What do you think about that? And if they're not giving you the right answers, and if you're not seeing improvement, go to someone else. You are allowed to fire your health provider and find the person that is going to help you achieve health and happiness and well-being. So these are some of the foods that I'll recommend. Some prebiotics, probiotics, kombucha, yogurt, kimchi, miso, sauerkraut, kefir. So we need that good bacteria. Remember, we are coexisting with this bacteria. So let's just feed the good bacteria, because we need this good bacteria. A lot of the bacteria that we have in our gut is helping us create some of the hormones, vitamin K, some of the vitamins that we need. So we need to feed this good bacteria. And then some prebiotic foods, onions, dandelion greens, garlic, artichokes, bananas, chicory root, asparagus, leeks, some raw jicama. I love jicama. Apples, cocoa, flax seeds. And if you can eat this every day, you'll be feeding those good bacteria. So remember, we want to lower the pathogens, lower those bullies, and then just increase the leaders in our microbiome. We don't want the bullies to be the leaders. So let's empower those good bacteria. So here are some of the tips that I recommend. And I was talking about how, so yes, by looking under the microscope, we can see what kind of bacteria, but unfortunately, for example, the spirochetes, which are the ones that are connected with Alzheimer's disease, there's like 7 different types of spirochetes. So yes, I can see a spirochete under the microscope, but I don't know which one it is. So some of these tests, the Bristle oral health test, it's a good way to find which ones are the bacteria that are in your mouth. You just spit in a little tube, mail it to them, and they'll send you the results with the recommendations. It's a really great test. The other option is the oral DNA. It's a really comprehensive. It has not only the pathogens in your mouth, but it also talks about genetics. We have a lot of patients where they have really good oral hygiene. They come every 2-3 months to have their cleanings. They brush, they floss, they use this little interdental brushes. They use the water pick. They do everything we recommend, and they are still having inflammation. Well, a lot of that is a lot of this inflammation is connected with genetic predisposition. So they give you, especially Bristle gives you, it's a little simpler to understand for the public. The oral DNA requires a little more training, but it still gives you really good information. So then it can give you a personalized diet. It will give you some recommendations. It will measure your improvement if you do the testing within 3-4 months. It will tell you, yes, you're improving, or no, you need to do something different. And it gives you good support. It's really good support online. So it's a good option. It will determine the candida and then some of the yeast, for example. So this one, the DNA, the oral DNA, it just gives you also information about the genetic and the individual susceptibility. So how are you susceptible genetically? So those are two tests that I recommend. The other thing is the water pick. Water pick is a good idea because yes, you can be brushing, you can be flossing, and this is a great picture. Between the teeth, especially at the gum level, there is a bigger space. So if you're using the floss, and I highly recommend using the thickest floss possible, because if you see this, there's a big space. So if you're using a thin floss or like the tape is very thin, it's not really going to clean really well in between the teeth at the gum level. We want to remove all this bacteria. Then like the little picks, those are an option, but I'm loving this interdental brushes because if you see on that picture, it just goes in every single area and cleans it really well. But the water pick also helps remove some particles and debris, and it stimulates the gum tissue. But then also you can put something in the water that helps get rid of the bad bacteria. You can put salt water in it. You can put hydrogen peroxide. You can put, it might sound a little weird, but we recommend a little bit of bleach in the water. When we are having this pretty aggressive bacteria, bleach will help get rid of them. A small amount. And then just use the prebiotics, probiotics. There's some oral probiotics that are really good too. Bristle actually has some good oral probiotics. The other thing that we don't think about is, imagine if we have all these different bacteria in our mouth and we're using this toothbrush every single day. We're not disinfecting it. So this brand is a good one, is an UV light that is going to sanitize your toothbrush. Something else for prime health and just to improve our gums is the PerioProtect. Not every dentist uses PerioProtect. This needs to be custom made. And the company, PerioProtect company, custom makes this. And the idea is for them, it's hydrogen peroxide at 1.7% that goes in it. Goes so deep. Because when you're brushing, you brush maybe 1, 2, maximum 2 millimeters. But we need to go to the 3, 4, 5. So then the PerioProtect is a good idea. And now, this is for next session. Unlocking the power of a smile. Where we're going to be talking about psychological and emotional benefits of smiling and how it can boost your mood and reduce stress. So I want to know, and I want you to either write it down and tell me if you change your mind about that initial question of which ones are the toxins that you think are affecting you the most. After all this, what do you think is affecting you the most? Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your energy with me.